Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
You know, even during a film festival, everyone's pulling double duty. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean that you're in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, this audio-only experience, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of entertainment industry professionals. We pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and a conversational fashion. And, you know, if you like how we do things around here, I will assume that you do, because, quite frankly, you're listening. So please keep listening and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, gives you a 5-star rating in your podcast provider of choice. We're available pretty much everywhere, places like Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, and plus we archive every single one of our episodes over at our In the Seats YouTube channel. So if you can give us a like and subscribe there as well, we'd absolutely appreciate it. Also, don't hesitate to check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, TikTok, Blue Sky, Threads. It's too many, but we're at In the Seats for all sorts of fun updates. And finally, and I do dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca for all latest and greatest from the world of film, television, basically the moving image at large, because guess what, if we live to watch it and write about it and talk about it, please come by to all our podcast platforms, our YouTube page, and our main page to listen about it and read about it, because it means the world to us, and we hope you stop by. On this episode, we're still in the throw of Hot Docs, the International Canadian Documentary Film Festival, or is it the International Documentary Canadian Film Festival? I always mix it up, but it's one of our favorites here in the city of Toronto. It is running through the weekend, diving into documentaries left, right, and center. But we're still doing that on this episode, but it's almost adjacent there too, because we're talking to actually one of the programmers at Hot Docs, one only Aisha Jamal, and we talk a little bit just about sort of the art of programming and working at a place like Hot Docs and just sort of the evolution of the festival and the importance of the documentary film and all that fun stuff. But at the same time, she is also a filmmaker, and she just had her film The Theft premiere on TVO, and it's available on their YouTube channel, the TVO Docs YouTube channel, website, and app. It's really a great film, and it's the story of artifacts and just sort of finding provenance on so many historical elements that sort of go missing, and it's set against the backdrop of Afghanistan, and it traces the journey of these 12th century marble panels that are looted over decades of war and upheaval. And today, so many of these things sit inside Western museums, but that you can't. It's hard to get them back to the communities that where they originated, because proof of ownership and just sort of the idea of, you know, who got what from where is something that is so muddled and confusing, and it's unfortunate that so many of these artifacts aren't able to sort of return to the communities and the cultural landscapes that really gave them their importance and meaning. And we talked with Aisha about that as well, and it's just again, it's an interesting film, and it's one of those things that, you know, especially when it comes to sort of the horrors of war, this is one of those things that never really kind of gets talked about, and it was a fascinating angle she took on it. It's a great film, which, like I said, is available on the TVO Docs YouTube channel, their website. Go check it out. Enjoy our talk about not only this film, but, like I said, insight into programming a festival like Hot Docs as well, because that's always pretty fascinating to me too. But enjoy our talk with Aisha, because it's a darn good one. I liked it. All right, well, Aisha, obviously, first off, I mean, just thank you so much for the time today, and I mean, congratulations, not only on your film, The Theft, which played TVO last night. It's going to be playing again later in this week. It's going to be streaming available, but also it's you've been at Hot Docs for 10 years, and the festival's coming right around the corner, so it's exciting times.
It is my favorite time of the year, so I'm very excited.
It is the festival of nonfiction. Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on that one. I love it. I love it. But I mean, I got to ask you about The Theft. I mean, I was so struck by it because it's one of those things where sort of the idea of tracking provenance and really sort of understanding what is supposed to go where and understanding the amount of things that have been plundered and the things that go lost and go missing is mind-boggling, to say the least. I mean, what made you want to sort of jump down this rabbit hole?
You know what? I think maybe because it is mind-boggling and it is so complex that I was like, well, that's an interesting topic. But at the same time, I think it's a subject that's really in the moment, you know? It's really in the zeitgeist. And I think not only Canada, but various places around the world are dealing with this topic in relation to different populations. And there's some museums that are really under fire. For example, the Met, you know? And I was really interested in not only that topic, but then I was also interested in how Afghanistan was left out of that subject or out of that topic because you go to museums and you often see artifacts from Afghanistan. And I started to ask myself this question of, how many of those are actually there legally versus illegally through theft and plunder and, illegal transport. So that really sort of got me thinking about this particular moment we are in and how that relates to the place that I'm from, Afghanistan.
Well, and I mean, even just sort of the bare realities of, okay, that's nice to to give something back to the appropriate museum or culture that belongs to, but if they're not physically able to take it, that's another story entirely as well. And it
You know
just,
what? That's so, so, so true. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I
no,
just
no,
get
please,
excited.
please.
I do think it's a question that you have to think about. The answer is not always to give something back. Lots of places ask for things back, and I think if someone makes a request, you have to take it serious. And if the museum, it's on them to really make sure that they give back something that is illegal instead of making all these arguments and all of this resistance to like various places wanting rightfully their illegally taken things back. But in the case of Afghanistan and especially some other countries, I don't think the answer is always just like package it up and send it back. There's different options that we have to explore. We have to explore things like profit sharing, a lease agreement. I don't know, consult the people, consult the country that it's from and the community that it's from, what they think is like the right thing to do in this case. So I don't think the answer is always just, package it and bring it back.
Can you talk a little bit about, I guess, maybe sort of the reinstallation of the Taliban as the ruling government, like, and how much
Mhm.
that has kind of slowed down this process?
Yeah, it's a really crazy thing. The Taliban is a civil dictatorship, so they make the rules and there is no countering it. And they are, in their first iteration, they were the people that were blowing up cultural heritage in Afghanistan. And one of the saddest moments in my film, people tell me, is when the Bamiyan Buddhas get blown up in
Yeah.
2001. And I think that really struck a lot of people like, whoa, like here's this government blowing up its own shit. Its own historical, precious, artifacts and whatever, landmarks. So they were not people that you could trust, and no one would at that moment in time send anything back to Afghanistan. But when they came back to power, and I think in a large part, this is for them avoiding having to talk about things like women's rights and all of the other abhorrent things they're doing. They are now positioning themselves as the people who are here to really like protect cultural heritage. And like they're going to be the champions of Afghanistan's history and artifacts and art. So they've really changed their image, they've changed their tune, and they're asking for the international community to support them and send them money to do exactly that. So I think that rightfully so, a lot of people around the world and museums are scratching their head going, can we trust this?
Yeah.
So I think that that's sort of a big question to ask yourself. Can you trust the Taliban in their current iteration? Like we have seen them to not be trustworthy, So especially even now, at the beginning of this regime, they had promised women's rights and that women would be able to keep going to school. And then they go, actually, we said only to grade six. So, you know, that's a serious thing to think about and
For
consider.
sure,
And I
yeah.
think in my film we see kind of like iterations of that.
I'm curious because honestly, everyone you talk to, it felt personal, and everyone was very sort of invested. Like, from
Mhm.
every single subject you talked to in the film. How did you manage to not sort of go down sort of that didactic rabbit hole of tracking provenance and from this person to that person to that person to this person? Because I mean, I can imagine you could have done an entire film just on the paperwork of an issue like this.
Would you want to watch an
Well,
entire
there
film about
lies the
them?
rub.
No, you know what? I also, in some ways, wanted to make a film that was asking sort of bigger questions,
Yeah.
and then we do use the marbles as one touch point, but I do think that these people study bigger things and think about bigger things. And I really wanted to, and I hope that becomes clear in the film, also look at some of the ways that these things get out. The route through Pakistan is very important. And then how they end up at these various auction houses, for example. That's why you get all of those sort of like animated ghastly marbles that are actually real for sale. Auction house announcements in between. So yeah, it's hard to sort of interweave it all without getting too caught up in like the detail, even though I really wanted to be like, excuse me, let me tell you about who signed this paperwork and where it went after that.
Well, and it's one of those things where, I mean, obviously, when we think of war and we think of anything, anywhere, Afghanistan, that, that has had, these things happen, we think of the human cost. We don't necessarily think of the cultural and the plunder that kind of gets taken out over generations. And I mean, this idea of wanting to rebuild a cultural heritage which has been so fragmented is really fascinating and not one that I guess me as the white guy Westerner in the room had really kind of thought about.
Hmm. Yeah, I think you know what, to be honest, because I do think human lives in many ways are a primary concern, and if that's given. And then I think it's really important to also think about Afghanistan has consistently been seen through a very simplistic lens in the West, which is war, which is fundamentalism, which is the denial of women's rights.
Yeah.
And that's not a simplistic lens, but it's a particular lens. And I do think there's more complexity to the country. Like, truly, if I tell people Afghanistan used to be entirely Buddhist or predominantly Buddhist, people go, no. And you're like, no, actually, it has layers of history. There was a medieval period in Afghanistan. So I think that in a way to complexify the image of Afghanistan, I want to make films like The Theft that like show you that there's another side to this country. And like, yes, the other things are true too. The Taliban is unfortunately a reality, and the denial of women's rights is like a horrible thing that is real. But at the same time, it's also a country that is full of culture and tradition and art.
Well, and I mean there is such a tendency in the West to try to simplify the Middle East, and I mean which is such a complex and culturally rich region that we tend to forget about so often. And I mean that to me is the sad thing. I mean, Iran was Mesopotamia. There's so many
Hmm.
different kind of stories that and culture that tend to get forgotten in sort of the horribleness of things that are happening.
Yeah, I think that there's always sort of a flattening of other places.
Yeah.
Like we can keep in our minds the complexity of France and Italy and all these other places that we've studied in so much detail and that whose culture we learn in high school and university. But then we don't have that same sort of knowledge or depth or complexity of other places, like, for example, the Middle East or South Asia.
Yeah.
So I think that that's certainly something that is changing. Like I see a change, and I think that there's people in the diaspora also making work helping that change.
No, I mean, I'm curious, just as transition a little bit, because obviously
Yeah.
Hot Docs is going on, right? We're on the brink of getting another festival. My favorite festival, obviously, probably yours as well.
Yes.
It's one of those things where, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is your 10th year as a programmer?
Yes. Yeah, kind of remarkable, eh?
Well,
But yeah, 10
happy
years.
anniversary on that one for
Thank
sure.
you. Thank you.
I'm kind of curious, like from your perspective, how have you seen the art of documentary film evolve? Because I mean, even for me as a critic and attending a festival like this, I've seen such a widespread of cinema that has evolved sort of the nature of what it means to be a documentary. Because obviously, there are many people who aren't necessarily film fans or in the industry will think
Mm-hmm.
of the documentary as, the talking head piece, and you get
Mm-hmm.
fed facts and yada yada
Mm-hmm.
yada. But it is such a film form that has no rules. And it does feel like, especially in the last 10 years, people are more than willing to sort of throw out the rule book and try
Yeah.
really different things with it.
Yeah, I think you're really right. And I think a lot has to do with also like technology being so much more accessible.
Yeah.
We have so many beautiful films shot on so many different formats. And I think that has really opened up the form of documentary because documentary in the first place has always been a cheaper form of filmmaking than fiction. But at the same time, I think a change that I also see is that people are more, I mean, this might be an oversimplification, but we do also see higher budget docs come around as well. And that didn't used to be the case. I think that in the last 10 years, we're also seeing more bombastic documentaries. So I think for me right now, it's like such a diversity of approaches and ways of telling a story that's really exciting about documentary. And I think it's bringing it back to the forefront because for quite a while, I feel like documentary has taken a backseat to fiction. But I think it's as exciting and more exciting in this moment.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there was that period where if it was like, okay, if it's not a true crime thing, we don't want to know about it. But
Yeah,
now
yeah,
we've gotten kind of over that hump.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I think like if you go to Hot Docs, I think one of the things that really attracts people to that festival, and including me working there, is the fact that you have the option of seeing so many different types of docs. Like this is not a festival that's just one type of films. It's like so many different kinds of films that you can see. Big budget, small budget, like experimental, pretty straightforward, first person narrative or more like topic driven narratives.
Well, and I mean, I got to see a couple. I've been able to see a couple. I mean, there was something like Concrete Turned to Sand, which fascinated me, and then I found out, oh my God, they shot it on 35 millimeter. You're
Yeah.
documentarians. How is that possible?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a very small crew, so I
Yeah.
assume that what one of the differences between shooting a fiction on 35 is the mass amount of people you need, and then like shooting a doc on 35 means that's probably three people working together.
And then there's
Um,
something so small and so subtle about something like Parasisi, which is gorgeous, but at the same time, almost satirical in a way that they put it together and really show sort of the things that are happening to the people that they're covering. And it's one of those things where I love documentary for the perspective it allows us.
yeah, and for the access to communities that you aren't part of, right? That like, I'm a curious person by nature, so I do want to know about these various places and peoples and communities that I just don't have access to, or sometimes I don't even want to be part of, but I'm interested in how they function
Yeah.
and what drives them?
No, I mean, I gotta ask, how do you keep sort of the programmer brain and the
Yeah.
filmmaker brain separate? Because obviously, as a programmer, you are watching far too many movies to count, especially, when you have to sort of narrow it down to the festival selection.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know if you keep them separate. I think in a way they speak to each other at all times.
Okay. Okay.
Like when you're watching documentaries, as in a high number like I am, you do see the trends in filmmaking. And
Yeah.
as a documentary filmmaker, you clock them. So you're like much more interested in how they did certain things or why certain things are being done repeatedly than maybe a programmer who's not a filmmaker. So I think that in a way, those two brains speak to each other in various moments. And I think it's very productive, actually. I do understand the pains of making a film and then sending it around and getting rejected? So I feel like you kind of have these experiences that are multi-layered from the film industry.
Well, and I mean, that is sort of the nature of the business as well, isn't it? Because, I mean, even as little as a few years ago, hot docs was a bit of a bigger beast, but through various situations that happened, it had to sort of tighten up and narrow its focus a little bit, which I think ultimately is a good thing. And I mean, at the end of the
Hmm.
day, how do
Hmm.
you sort of look at a festival like Hot Docs, especially as and I think this applies to everyone, tries to really sort of curates its lens rather than trying to accept as many different films as they possibly can to sort of give everyone sort of a voice. It really does feel like Hot Docs has gotten to a point where it's like, okay, we were finding the creme de la creme before, but now we're really going to find the creme de la creme. It's like turning that screw one extra twist.
Yeah, because now it's also like a festival that has pared down, in a way. So you can't accept everything anymore, or you can't. Your program, so each section is not as extensive as it used to be. So now you really got to argue for a film and why it has its place in the festival. So you're really right. I think it becomes a bit more of a fine-tuned machine because you really have to be careful about what you take because the numbers and the spots are so limited.
No, for sure. Now, I mean, I gotta ask, when the treadmill starts, which I'm sure is sort of any minute now,
Hmm.
like, what are your tricks to survival? Like, do you have granola bars in the bag, bottled water? Like, how do you sort of stay focused in the moment?
You know what? I actually really The Q&As that I'm doing this year are all for films that I'm deeply excited to meet the filmmakers and the film teams
Oh,
for. So
nice.
when I'm on stage, I feel like I'm in the moment. I think it's the time when you step off stage and you're waiting for the next film that you're doing that you really have to have your tricks to be like, okay, how do I relax? How do I not burn out? Like you have to be an extrovert sometimes to do this job because you're constantly interacting with people and like so I think one of my tricks is always to find a corner, completely isolated in the TIFF light box, where I can sit by myself, take my shoes off because often my shoes need to come off for me to be fully relaxed, And I try to like stare at a wall or close my eyes or meditate. And like even if I do that for 5 minutes, it like really rejuvenates me. So I have to do these kinds of things in between every day to really feel like I can keep going.
Well, and it's that balance too, because I mean, even for me on my end, there's like obviously I'm seeing a lot too, and you can't see everything in the theater, but at the same time, it's understanding what I want to see in the theater, what I want to experience with the
Yeah.
crowd. Like I want to see opening night film with a crowd. I don't want to see that
Oh yeah.
alone. I want to see that with a crowd.
Yeah, for sure. No, no, I think you're 100% right. Some films really lend themselves to like a party atmosphere, like the opening night film.
Yeah,
And then there are
exactly.
also
Yeah,
some other films that I think are so thoughtful that you want to be in an audience and you want to hear what the filmmaker has to say. So I think that there are some films, and you know what? There are films that I really argue you've got to be locked in a dark room and someone's got to close the door for you to watch the whole thing. And then you'll be so happy you did.
100%, 100%. Now, I mean, you can't pick favorites, and I wouldn't ask you to, but
Yeah.
if you're trying to sell hot dogs to somebody
Yeah.
who doesn't necessarily understand the vibe of the festival, like what would your sort of elevator pitch be?
Like not particular one film, you mean like the
Yeah, just sort
festival?
of the entire thing, the entirety of the
Yeah.
festival.
Honestly, my pitch is that there is a film for everybody at Hot Docs. We are a film that is in some ways the buffet of documentaries. So if you're a person who comes to the festival and you're like, I just like entertaining films, then I go, great, we got some things for you. And if you're a person who comes and he says you really like art films and slow films, then I'll be like, fantastic, we got some films for you. So I feel like you will find what you want at this festival. And if you're a person who likes to be challenged, you'll definitely find something outside of your wheelhouse as well. So I think this is a festival that's for everybody. I cannot imagine a single person who wouldn't find a film that they would want to see at this festival.
Well, and that's so true too. And I mean, the world, especially in Toronto, always focuses on TIFF, but at the same time, hot dogs, in the grand scheme of things, like I don't know the exact sort of
Yeah.
proportion of it all. It's like top three, top five in the world for documentary films.
Oh, for sure. We're definitely in the top five.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, like, think about it. Like, people come here, they travel here to represent their films. That means something.
Oh,
Like, you
yeah.
get to watch a film from Iran and the filmmaker will be there. Like, that's pretty awesome
Yeah,
to get
which is
that
pretty wild, which
context.
is this day and age, that's
Oh,
not an easy thing to
yeah.
do. Yeah.
Look at me pick the one country where probably they won't get their visa.
But I mean, Aisha, just I mean, obviously, congrats on the film, first of all, because I mean, I
Thank
really
you.
enjoyed it, and I mean, I'm so glad people are getting to see it. But just congrats on your work at Hot Docs. 'Cause, I mean, it's honestly, it was one of the first festivals I got accredited for when I started this job like 15 years ago, and it's always been near and dear to my heart, and I love supporting it every single year. And I can't wait to see what this year has in store. But hopefully, I see it on the warpath, and just again, thank you for the time and the insight. I appreciate it.
No, thank you so much, David. I look forward to seeing you at the festival.
Likewise. All right. See you soon.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.
And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.